All right. Thank you everyone so much for joining us. I'm Melissa Jones, and on behalf of the CTLE, we are very excited to offer another excellent faculty panel here. We do have a few people still joining the room, so if everyone is getting settled, just a couple of reminders. This session is being recorded, and we do share the recording out publicly on our YouTube channel, so keep that in mind. And also, if you have any questions during the session, feel free to post them in the chat, or you can message me directly if you need anything. And with that being said, I am very happy to turn the floor over to our faculty presenters today. And we welcome you, and let me know if you need anything during the session.
Wonderful. Yeah, so I'm Audrey Koch. I'm one of the faculty librarians over in the Cannon Memorial Library, and joining me is Amy Harris, who's going to also provide the beginning of the presentation. And yeah, so I'll start the presentation. Let me share my screen here. All right. Okay, can everybody see the presentation fine? Just give me a thumbs up. Yay, okay, so we'll get started. So what we're going to talk about today is the benefits of creating a strong working relationship between the librarians and professors. And let me just, next slide. What I'm going to start off with is, what is information literacy? A lot of what we do for students, or what we try to impart to students, is better information literacy skills. And that can range from, if you look at this umbrella here, media literacy, which is basics like computer literacy, being able to use a mouse. Sometimes we have students that come in, especially older non-traditional students, who really have been away from, who really haven't been exposed to computers much, never needed to, and then they suddenly find themselves at school where they need that information. So sometimes we need to give them the things you wouldn't think of that really compound their issues with going back to school. And we try to help them with those little things. And visual literacy, understanding what they're looking at right away. So it's the beginning stages sometimes with some of our students that we help with. The next step is research and library skills, the basic searching, knowing to not just use Google, to use our databases, to use the many different things we have available to them, expose them to that. And just the basics of searching, like not just putting in a sentence like they can do in Google and find what they need. Really teaching them Boolean logic, putting quotes around certain terms, etc. Getting them familiar with how to speak basically to our databases to get the results that they need. Then it goes beyond that, critical reading of that information, knowing how to look at the information and pull out what they need for what they're doing, thinking more critically about things, not just going into the databases and say, oh, there's 3 articles, great, now I'm done. Now I'm going to write on this. So we kind of help them with picking out what's the best stuff for their research. Then we also help a bit with APA formatting, MLA formatting, Chicago, whatever style they need to use for their class. Not just help them find how to do that or how to cite. We also impart to them, this is why it's important. We need to give credit to other people's work. So that's the range of what we do when we do teach, the basics of that. So basically wrapping it up is it's knowing how much and what type of information is needed by each student. Searching in the correct places for the best resources. Gathering and assessing, repeat. So you don't just get things, you're all set and you're done. To really assess that information and learn it and know what they can put together to make a successful paper, project, what have you. And of course, the ethical considerations of citing correctly. All right, we get a lot of are standards from the ACRL, American College and Research Libraries. It's a branch of the American Library Association, which is like our major organization that we follow, that we belong to. And I've included a YouTube video here. If Melissa, you could put it in the chat also. It's a great video on ACRL standards, and it's a librarian talking with a group of professors about using these standards that you see on the right and how to impart them to students. And they talk about certain things that they need to convey to students together to make things work. So it's worth it to watch that YouTube video and get some information from there. And a side note, Otterbein, Amy, that's where you went to school, right? I didn't know
That's
that,
right.
and I picked that out randomly. So must be a great school because it's a great video. So these are our tenants here on the right-hand side. And we need to impart information literacy skills because a lot of students come here who might have been exposed a little bit in high school to this, but they don't know the depth of things. And a lot of them lack the sound inquiry research skills at this setting, at this level. And that conjoined with the fact that it's a fast-paced society sometimes makes it a little bit of a challenge because people want to put things together really quick, or they also have life demands that keep them from putting so much time into what they need to do. So that's a challenge. And also some students might have poor time management skills. They feel overconfident that they can get this done in one night. And then when they sit down to do it, they're like, uh-oh, let me go chat with a librarian really quick. And then they freak out. So that's a challenge that we have. And recognizing that information and information seeking methods are dynamic. And that's for all of us. Amy and I together have about 50 years of experience being librarians, and we're still learning. We're still learning different citation methods. We're learning different databases to go to, different search methods. So it's an ongoing process for everyone. So with that, we will talk more about the collaborations. Of course, I put a little definition here from a dictionary because I thought that would be important to put. And the quote is to work jointly with others or together, especially in an intellectual endeavor. So that's what we're doing here. So Amy, it's your turn to take the stage.
So some barriers that come up that prevent successful librarian and instructor collaboration. The first one is usually just lack of knowledge. What can the librarian bring to the class, to the students, to the professor? So we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. I understand that there's often a reluctance to give up class time. There's always so much content to cover. And I know that you all are trying to make it through that. So I understand that class time is valuable. Another thing that comes up is that we're kind of called in to be babysitters sometimes. If they're, if a professor has a medical issue or they can't be there that day because they're going to be at a conference, they may call us to come in and teach. And I do not mind coming in to teach if there's a research project. But if there's no research project and we come in, then usually the students, they smell that right away. They're like, oh, this is not important because there's no project. And if it were important, my professor would be here. So that's kind of a missed opportunity because we are teaching for someone, but we don't get that chance to collaborate and talk about what's best for the students. There's also a myth, and this seems to be everywhere, that librarians have one singular presentation and we just dust that off every time you call us. And that is definitely not true, especially here at St. Leo, because we really do try to work with each professor, instructor, talk about the research assignment, the syllabus, expectations. What do you want those outcomes to be? And then we look at, okay, how can we tailor the session so you get what you want. And so your students get what they need. And the other thing about that is that what they learn in English 122, right? They're usually freshmen, sophomores. So the kind of research they need to do for that class is very different than the kind of research they need to do in the upper level classes. So once they're in criminal justice or business or social work, sociology, those are different databases and they take a different level of skill. So we definitely need to get into those upper level classes and show those students how to do research properly. Another fun thing is that students will tell professors that they already know how to search the databases and they know how to do the citation style. And of course, then you get the paper and you realize, no, they have no clue. So I think it's just important to be careful about what students tell you. Now, the benefits of collaboration, I think there are so many benefits in cross-departmental collaboration, because this just provides openness for both departments. You know, what do you do? Collaboration, collegiality, connectedness, diversity, experimentation. These are all things that we all want, and we want them for St. Leo. We want that to be part of our culture. So working together is a benefit to bring that about. There's no one size fits all. Like I said, we're trying to tailor everything in our communications with you, in our relationship with you. I find that when librarians and professors have a solid relationship, it does reduce student stress because they know that they have the faculty's permission to go ask a librarian. Sometimes students think that asking a librarian is cheating, and it's hard to get past that with some students. So just know that that might be what they're thinking, even if they're not saying it. Definitely, when we can collaborate, there's an improvement in the outcomes and our return on investment, and we all want that for our students. So that's very important as well. One of the studies that we looked at, they talk about familiarity then equals trust equals progress. And what I have found through working with faculty is when I have that opportunity to work with a certain course and a certain professor over time, then it does build trust. And that comes out in our interactions in class. And it does help the students make progress. And then some amazing things can come out of that beyond the classroom. Now, there was a study done in 2016 that found that substantial collaboration, which included more than one library session, that provided additional benefits. And you may be thinking, I don't have time for that. I barely have time for one interaction with the library. But actually, there is a way for us to be much more involved that does not take up more time in your class. So go ahead to the next slide. All right, so I want to talk a little bit. Yes, they don't read manuals. So I want to talk a little bit about how librarians teach. Some of this is in the faculty handbook that librarians do teach, but in a slightly different way. So I'm sure that many of you have experienced our absolutely obnoxious chat widget, right? So you go in your course and the thing is in the way and you're like, what? But chat has skyrocketed since COVID. That has really become the main way that your students communicate with us, and we're getting to them at the point of need. So it's when they're stuck in your class or when they're stuck on our databases, that's when they go to the chat widget and they're like, okay, I can't take it anymore. I need the answer. So we're there to help. We also have ways for students and faculty to make appointments with us so that we can help with research, citation styles. Sometimes I'm helping students with their computers, honestly, because they know so much about their technology, but then there's a limit. We also have writing support in the library, and I hope that most of you know this, that we have Angel and John David, who are library faculty, And they definitely go beyond the commas, right? We have Grammarly for that, but John David and Angel really work to help students build their writing skills over the semester. So I always tell students, work with them throughout your 4 years at St. Leo, because by the end of 4 years, you're going to be a terrific writer if you keep working with them. Now, as far as library support, just to list off some of the things that we can do, although this is definitely not the total list, but we can help your students with citation styles, and we found some catchy ways to get them to remember it, even if they seem to not be responding in class. Help with their topics. Sometimes giving them free rein on topics makes that more difficult for them. Even if they have a limitation on which topics they can pick, they don't know how to narrow that down effectively. And so we work with them. We don't do that work for them, but we work with them to understand how the controlled vocabulary works in the databases, and how do you narrow it down to something that's reasonable, that you can write a good paper on. And of course, we help find articles. So often, both with faculty and students, they read something and then it's like, I can't find the article. Where is this article? And, you know, we love to do that stuff. I'm kind of like a hunting dog. I joke about being a hunting dog in reference. And once you ask me a question, I have to find the answer. I just can't stop. Even if you're like, okay, I'm done, I don't need the answer. I'm sorry, I still have to find it, or I can't sleep at night. So we are very good at finding that stuff for you. Advanced searching. Definitely our graduate students need to learn not just the basics of databases and research, but they need to learn that advanced searching so that they can get the kinds of articles that are going to work best for their projects. And I always push Zotero, because Zotero will help students become more organized. It helps them get the articles out of the databases in a way that they don't have to do so much typing. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but we notice it a lot in chat that they're very fast at texting, very slow at typing. So Zotero helps with some of that. It also gives them a note-taking system, which most students do not have. They will tell me in class, they just stick quotes into a Word document and move it around, right? Yeah, so Zotero gives them an organized way to take those notes, and then it will do almost any citation style that's out there. Now, I tell students this is no excuse for not knowing the citation style, but it's easier to fix than to create from scratch. And I tell them that with that extra time, they should be using that to spend more time thinking about the topic and thinking more critically, so that hopefully they're giving you a better paper in the end. So what you may be used to, probably the things that you see the most, would be the one shot. That's another way that we teach. And we call it the one shot because that's when we come in for 50 minutes, one class period, and teach your students whatever you feel the needs are, whether that's the citation style, the research, something else. But what you may not be as aware of is having an embedded librarian. Now, this is not a new concept in library science, but it has become more needed due to COVID, and I'm really seeing professors having great success with this. So this is where you have a personal librarian basically assigned to your course. We're embedded in the course in the sense that we are in there with the students. So we can interact with their discussion posts if you want us to. Keep in mind that we always follow whatever boundaries you have for us. If you want us to be full on using the announcement board and bringing up things as it gets closer to a project, things like that, we'll definitely be glad to do that. If you just want us kind of in the background, that still helps the students because they feel like they have a personal librarian. The professor's given permission that they can contact this person. And because we're actually in the course, we know what the calendar looks like, what the deadlines are. It makes it much easier for us to have effective interactions with the students. So if you're interested in an embedded librarian after this presentation, contact Doris Van Kampen-Bright, who is our university librarian, and she does all the scheduling for that. So we have two professors with us, Dr. Du Bois and Dr. Dietrich, and they are going to talk with you about their experience. And so Audrey's going to go first, asking some questions and opening up discussion, and then I'll be after that.
Okay, thank you. So Dr. Du Bois, thanks for coming and attending the talk today. It's much appreciated. I'm going to ask you some questions about your in-class session experience here at St. Leo. And the first question I'm going to ask is, overall, what is your general view of the librarian-professor relationship?
Yeah, thanks, Audrey. Thanks for inviting me to participate in this. I told Audrey immediately that I was thrilled to, because librarians have been critical to my courses since I started 6 years ago at St. Leo. I'm a history professor, so our students do a lot of research, and library support is critical, and it starts very early. So yeah, there's a lot of things I want to say to kind of sing the praises of the work here, but I thought it would be useful to give a couple examples. So I use library support in at least 3 of my classes, and I use it differently, or I request it differently, and they provide it in kind of different forms. But one of them is a UE class. It's our immigration class, and at the end of the semester, students have presentations, and we go a couple of times to the library over the course of the semester. Early on in the semester, librarians, and this started with Caroline Moon, and now Audrey has been supporting this class as well. They've created this wonderful LibGuide that other students have used and kind of contributed to over the semester. But what we ask the students to do is to investigate an ethnic group that has immigrated to the United States, kind of talk about the waves of immigration that followed, and then identify a single individual from within that ethnic group. And what happens is, inevitably, the librarians that we have prove critical to really helping the students narrow down their topics, to helping them using reference material, or using the library's collections, especially the digital collections, and learning how to keyword search and putting things together. So, and then we return later in the semester, where they meet again with the librarians to kind of go over their presentations as they're starting to move forward with them and get any other input. And last year, Audrey took the step of actually doing her own presentation to give them an example of what one would look like. And it was wonderful. Of course, it was outstanding, but it was a really nice way for the students to kind of see where the rubber meets the road, and all this work that they're starting to do. Most of them are freshmen, to actually see how it's going to turn into an actual presentation that they can give, and then having a model like Audrey's, to use for them is really helpful. So that's really outstanding. I also use, and Caroline Moon again has gone back on this with me for a while, but I use support in 2 upper level classes that are linked together in history, building towards the senior SEM, our 499 class, which is a big research project. We actually have students pick it their junior year and start to research it in a different class. And I have library support in both of those classes. And that's a different kind of task. It's not basic reference information, how to put together a presentation and things. This is, how do we combine secondary sources, meaning sources written by historians and other scholars, with primary sources that go back to the time period that my history students are studying. Some of them go back centuries. How do you, first of all, how you locate all those, how you distinguish between the two, how do you combine them in your research process itself. And again, for that, there's been a terrific LibGuide that Caroline Moon and now Audrey's helping with as well, that has supported. I was just going back through that pretty recently. It's amazing how many projects have come out of this, and how many of them the library staff was really important at building the source base for our students, or helping them build the source base. Anyway, yeah, so that's a different kind of task. And that also includes, we used to before COVID, got to use the microfilm machine, bring students in to see that, which was always a hoot, and they like to do that. So anyway, that's the other one. And then the third example, I teach a course called Career Development. That's for history and political science students, that tries to expose them to all the different career options that are available to students who graduate with social science degrees. And for the last couple of years, Caroline Moon has come in and given presentations about library sciences and what it's like to be a professional librarian. And every year I'm always delighted to see at least one or two students end up seeking out Carol Ann afterwards to talk more about her experiences, because whether they were thinking about it before or something that she said really caught their attention about how you make your way into this profession, I've seen how that really benefits our students. So my life would be very, very challenging if it weren't for the librarians at St. Leo. And of course, our library, the resources inside it, the physical books, it's not like a lot of bigger universities in the big libraries. So having people who can help students navigate the digital sources, the electronic sources, is so important. And to make sure they're doing proper research. And frankly, I think it's harder because we can't just send them into the stacks, endless stacks, and just tell them to grab physical books and start reading. They really need help doing a lot of the research that our library has. So anyway, they're also wonderful people. Carol Ann Moon has offered to help me. I'm hosting a conference next year on campus, next semester on campus, and Carol Ann's offered to help in all kinds of ways. And Audrey's done all kinds of things for me as well. So they're just delightful people to work with in addition.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
That was wonderful. Let's see. What else can we say here? Would you consider in future collaboration on various levels beyond the classroom with librarians? And you did mention just now working with Carol Ann on the conference that's coming up.
Yes. And that includes, and anyone in this presentation is also welcome if you're interested. It's a history conference, but it's going to be a big one on campus. And we're soliciting as many kind of projects as we can from St. Leo faculty to show off our delightful staff and faculty. But so Carol Ann has suggested her own presentation, but she's also going to lead a tour of the grotto. We should have a couple hundred people on campus for that. So again, just really great people. And the more you get to know them and work with them, there's all kinds of help that they can provide. But something else, I'm starting a new major here, hopefully pretty soon, called International Studies. And Carol Ann's been involved in that, the planning of that for a while, in a variety of levels, but she has been more than willing to kind of give me her input. So yeah, there's all kind. I've had multiple opportunities to do so. I really enjoy it, and I'm always looking for new ways of collaborating with the library faculty.
Excellent, Dan. We love working with you as well. And thank you again for attending. Much appreciated.
My pleasure.
And your support. So Amy?
All right, so Dr. Dietrich is with us, and we have okay. Now I'm not muted.
I did
right?
that. My fault. I'm sorry.
You're like, I'm done. That's it. So Dr. Dietrich is with us, and she and I have been working for some time as I've been an embedded librarian in her classes. So she has just been wonderful to work with, and I was so happy when she accepted and said that she would come and speak with all of you. So Dr. Dietrich, my first question is just how has having an embedded librarian helped your students?
Well, just to let you know how close we work together, we have a session tonight at 7 o'clock with one of the UE courses. And last week we had a session with the on-ground students in a 300 level medical history course. How it has helped me. So what I like about Amy is that she customizes everything. So she has access to the papers, she has access to the course, even my on-ground course, and I put everything in the on-ground shell so she can see what the papers are going to look like, what are the questions, all that stuff. And then I can email her and say, okay, so this is a UE course. The UE course needs everything you got because they have probably no idea how to even search the library. So she does one for them about how to search the library, but she also focuses on that specific paper. So it makes it more interesting for the student because it's not just how you search the library, it's how you search the library for this particular paper. And here's an example of information that could be helpful for this particular paper. So then for the 300 level class that I teach for anthropology, her examples are actually looking for these cultures that are in the paper. So she can go for the 300 online. She also has to teach them how to use the library period, because we can't assume that because they're in a 300 online course that they actually receive the information at any time. For 300 level on ground course, now we know that at one time or another, a librarian talked to them because they had that SLU course at the beginning. They might not remember it, but it's there. So how it has been helpful is that she customizes it. She puts in a discussion that nobody uses in the course, but she puts also an introduction. So that part of we don't know who the librarian is goes away pretty quickly. And the other thing that I do is I put announcements constantly reminding them to use Amy and that Amy is available, so that they know that we're working together and that I refer to Amy everything that has to do with library. And I have emails from people, searching for materials. And I said, have you talked to Amy? That's the first thing I ask. And I do help them, but then I say, Amy's going to help you even more if you contact her. And most of the time they do. So I'm going through the list of the barriers that she put in. Reluctance to give us class time. I gave that one up by simply encouraging them to come to a session outside of the class for the on-ground people. And what I did is I told them that I would waive the quiz that I already was planning to waive anyway, if they come to the session. And they were very happy. And I had 100% of the students either coming in or watching the video because they didn't want to do their reflection quiz, which was intentional. And the other thing that they do was that besides the customizing, we know this already. Well, great. Well, then you can just do the quiz if you know it already. So that's fine. You still have the option. I felt like the COVID testing, right? Where either you get the vaccine or you get tested every week. It's your choice, right? So the same is here. You can take the quiz if you want. So it has another thing that I do is that I notice they don't go for the librarian right away. So she puts her messages out. She knows that, she's there. They know she's there. They don't seek her out. So we don't have the session for the online until they fail basically their first attempt. So if it's paper 1, I have a session right before paper 1, and it's like a week to 2 weeks before, so that is not so far ahead that they're not even interested. When they have an outline, I let them do the outline and I tell them, go ahead and contact Amy, and they don't. And the outline requires for them to look for peer review journals. And I let them basically not do very well in that one. And then magically, they all want to talk to Amy right after that. And I do it intentionally because we have been testing it. We did it before the outline and nobody came in. Then we did it after the outline and magically everybody wanted Amy. So where you place Amy in the situation makes a huge difference on how many people are going to attend or watch the video. If I do it too early, they're just not even there. And I have to accept the fact that this is how they think. And this is a new group of students that is nothing like I was at their age or at the time that they were in college, right? Things have changed dramatically. I cannot expect them to be any different or to be like me when I was in college. So I had to just kind of learn how they learn and do it that way. And it has improved their grades. The ones that do use Amy tend to be very fanatical about the research and doing well.
So how has working with a librarian helped you outside of the classroom?
So we collaborate in many things. We presented at some librarian conference. We also have been talking about qualitative research that they're doing at the library and how I can assist them. So, and of course, if I ever have to need to search things for myself for research, I would definitely go to Amy because she is very passionate about searching, and she doesn't just search the regular places that I know. She searches things that I have never seen before. I actually go to these sessions with the students and I learn something new every time. Last time I learned about some data sources for history that I had no idea existed. So it's good for the student, it's good for me too. So outside of this, it's really helpful and the collaboration has been very good.
And I just wanted to say that it really makes a difference for the librarians how much the professor indicates the importance of the librarian. So when, especially in an embedded situation where we're working very closely with the professor, the students pick up on that. And so when I do give a presentation, they really are paying attention because they've heard from their professor, this is important, this is important. Where other sessions that we do where maybe there's not that level of collaboration, the students, only some of them will show up. I think last night, Audrey had 0 show up, but did a recording for them anyway, because she's wonderful and she wants them to know that. But the students really do pick up from their instructors how important this information is, and they apply themselves the level that you ask them to. So I think at this point, we just want to open it up for discussion and see what you all think, what questions you have or comments that you have.
I see there's a bunch in chat. Is that something we need to cover, Melissa? Were the questions resolved, or I haven't had a chance to go up there and look?
Could it just, I tend to talk a lot when you say something that really resonates with me. So a lot of that could be just comments, but I did want to share with the group that although I haven't used the embedded librarian, which is my next thing on my list, I did a couple semesters ago. I teach an assessment and an evaluation class that students are very uncomfortable with because not everybody understands data and assessment. And in one term, I had, not the best grades of what I wanted to see from my graduate students. So I asked Vicky to help me by doing a presentation. And what she did, she created a LibGuide for the students to use that had all of the resources that were going to respond to what they needed to put into the paper. And it was dramatic, the grades that we got when they got the LibGuide to what they were getting prior to getting the LibGuide. I mean, it was like night and day, and the students were much more happier, as I guess is the word I want to say, and not so upset and frustrated and stressed. And I wrote Vicky an email because I was just ecstatic. It's the work that you guys do. I just can't say enough. And I wish that, that we as professors would use you a great deal more, because the evidence speaks for itself.
Georgina, you were mentioning about how much time you're spending on APA. I find that having the embedded librarian reduces the time of that. I actually don't spend any time on APA. I give them sources, links, stuff like that. And I put, announcements and different resources for them to use. But I'm like, all you have to do is look at the pattern and follow it. So I don't have any patience myself to deal with the APA, right?
Yeah.
Amy,
it's hard.
Amy has all the patience in the world to deal with that. She created new sources for that. She posted them. I can actually say, when they send it to me and they say, is this correct? I'm fine with that. But if they keep saying, like, I keep having problems with APA, and you know how they never tell you what their problem is, they just tell you I have a problem. I said, well, talk to Amy. Amy's really good at that. Did you watch the video that Amy created? Right there, she tells you how to follow APA. And then I go in, oh, D2L says you haven't watched the video. Maybe you want to watch the video. So it's been really helpful.
Definitely going to Amy is on my list to contact, of course, and endorse so I can get the embedded librarian. But I'll tell you, I spend a lot of time and I do guides. I literally say on page 35, you can read about how to do a reference list. On page, I literally guide them to the page. And I say on page 313, all of the examples of how to format any type of reference. And I still, like tonight, I have a live session tonight, and I was going through my slides and I'm like, I still have a slide for APA, but man, if Amy can take all of that off my plate, I'm all for that. I'm for working smarter and not harder and collaborating, of course, because that's important. But yeah, I mean, that's why when you were talking, Marie Delis that's why I was like, man, yeah, I need to get with her and figure out how she did all that, because that I spend an enormous amount of time on APA, and I have graduate students, but they haven't been in a classroom for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. Some of them have never even been in an online course. So not only do I have to teach them the foundational technology skills, I have to teach them APA and all this other stuff. And it takes away from teaching content. It really does.
And they use at the library, Amy shows them how to use the template, the APA template paper. And I had no idea about that until Amy put it up, and I was like, this is magic. So, you know, they're very excited about the template, especially this history class right now, because it's medical history. So they are using APA, and they were all going to download the template and use that. So that saves you so much time, because the margins are already done. The way the headings go, they're already done. So it's really nice.
You know, I provide templates for all of my assignments, and I still have students that don't use the templates and then want to do their own thing, and then they can't figure out why you're getting low scores on their papers, because I said, if you use my template, it's aligned to the rubric. So if you use my template and just fill in the gaps, you're going to probably do well. But I still have students that, you know, do their own thing. I don't know.
This is Lambe. I just wanted to interject. I have some questions.
Okay.
What I'd like is a whole suite of services. I'd almost like a way of checklisting. I want some of this, I want some of that, I want some, and you know, the way it's presented right now, it sounds like I need to go to several people to get everything I need. Is there a single point of contact? Because I want it all. I want I've had an embedded librarian before, and I'm judgy because my mother was a reference librarian for 25 years. So she's the standard by which I judge all the librarians. And I didn't quite understand how to really leverage all of her expertise. And so I really wanted to be here today so that should I be granted another one, that I work well with him or her, and I give the best service to my students so that they can succeed. So I want the embedded librarian. I do want the presentation. I'm online only now, whereas I used to be on ground only. And so they're emphasizing live sessions. So I'm actually happy to give a live session to a librarian to help get my students on the right track. What I really liked was the motivation factor that you mentioned, whereas don't just throw everything at them in week one, but let them realize that they actually need a librarian. I think that's brilliant. That never occurred to me. And then I want the LibGuide because I keep telling my students Wikipedia and .com sites are unreliable and have commercial bias. I have said that until I'm blue in the face, and I still get stuff like that. So anything that would help narrow their focus on the highest quality, peer-reviewed, vetted materials, so that they're not tempted to go too far out there, I think would help them as well. So I just really want to know, how do I just go through one door and get everything?
Well, I put this back to the where you can contact either Amy or Doris to get that started. Do you want to take it from there, Amy? What else?
I would say probably start with me, just because Doris has so much on her plate. We can talk about, you know, the whole menu and what is possible, what we can do, and especially like building a LibGuide for a course. We are happy to do that. Often we do it when we're asked to teach, but not every professor is then aware that there's one out there. But you can, we have our Calendly links. I think it's another screen back, maybe, Audrey.
Go back.
But you can schedule an appointment with either one of us, and we can talk more about it that way as well. Because sometimes just doing a Zoom session and being able to talk about the specifics, it's just very helpful. So we'll make sure that the Calendly links get in the chat. And I would say, start with me and then we'll go from there and see what you want to do. I do all the scheduling for the librarians, so I'm not trying to take anything away from Audrey. It's just part of my job to do the scheduling. So.
Yeah, I'm part of the group of instructors that help Amy teach different sessions and work with different, we collaborate on all different types of projects and levels. So we're always happy to get these different requests, and they're a welcome challenge for us. So please do reach out to Amy and get that started. That'd be great.
I wanted to add, since, I brainstorm with Amy on what we need. I talk to her and I say, what about if we do X? What about if we do that? Because she can see the groups, she can see the course, she can see the grades, she can get to know the kids sometimes really well. So she can actually brainstorm with me and say, listen, this is where they're having an issue. They're having an issue with this, with that, with that. So I encourage, if you're using the embedded librarian or any librarian, that you brainstorm with them about your specific needs for the course in that term, because students do change every time, as Amy will find out at 7 o'clock tonight with a very challenging group that I have this year.
Any other questions or thoughts?
May I say just one follow-up thought? So do y'all also work with the instructional technology, embed some of these in the master courses? Like for those of us who are online and we're not having to build from an empty course shell, but like where most of our content is already populated in D2L, is there a way to connect with Dr. Han or someone on her team to make sure these are like systematically included? Because I mean, we have one professor who's working to provide custom content, but I can only imagine other professors might want some of that hard work and brain power that you put into the materials for one offering of a particular course, but it'd be nice to spread it out a little bit more to maybe multiple offerings and multiple professors.
So what I have seen in my time here is that when courses are created, that's the best opportunity to get something like that done. So I worked with Agnieszka Leach about with English 121, and we actually put all the class readings into a LibGuide, and that LibGuide's built into the course. So no matter how many times they replicate it or who teaches it, it's in there and the students are forced to use it, basically. So as far as working with them to make that happen in a course that's already there, we would just need to find out who is the original course builder and kind of get their okay from the department or the dean to make that kind of permanent change. So I think that's the way we would go about it, but we definitely work with online learning.
My course is a UE course online, and I added some content items because you're allowed to customize certain parts, just not others in learning design. So I added some information like, PowerPoints, and then I added some information about Amy and stuff like that, that I copy into every shell that I teach, basically every time that I teach online. And it's a UE course. It's actually not even redesigned, so it's the ugliest thing that you can possibly imagine. I added pictures and things because I couldn't stand looking at it. And part of the things that I added was Amy's information and presentations and stuff like that. So if you do get an ugly online, not redesigned, as an instructor, you can ask for it. If you want it in the master, then definitely learning design will have to be involved, but you can do it on your own shell, no problem.
Any other questions? I see that, I don't know what's in the, should we go through the chat, Melissa?
I think pretty much everything has been addressed.
Okay,
Yeah, I
okay.
believe so.
Anybody else have any parting remarks or questions for us? Well, thank you all for attending. This was great to share ideas and get together and talk about our collaboration. We both believe it's very important, and just remember that we're here for you, and we can custom design anything that you want for your classes, as you've witnessed with the two professors and the talk after. So thank you so much. And here's our emails. And if you go into our emails, you'll see a Calendly link, and you can set up sessions with us or a time to discuss setting up classes. So thank you. Amy, anything to add?
No, I just appreciate you all coming. It's been wonderful to hear what you have to say.
Yeah,
so thank you.
definitely.
Oh, perfect. Thank you all so much, everyone, for joining us. And a special thank you to our presenters today. This has been incredibly helpful. And we will be sharing out this information for anybody who couldn't be here today, or if you would like to watch the video again. And of course, if you need anything, including links or contact information for anyone who presented today, feel free to reach out to us and we'll make sure you're in contact as well. So I'll go ahead and stop the recording and then open up the floor for any other conversations that need to happen.
Thank you.